That's what it all started with right there. Welcome to the Industrial Revolution. Let's light things up. Now you are enlightened. Before Thomas Edison. After Thomas Edison. Whose turn is it to tell a spooky story this time? As we sit around the candle. Is it my turn? Oh, do I have a tale for you? Oh, yes. It is a tale of industrial revolution. A revolution that would actually span across one continent to another. And that's the tale that we are going to tell, so that none shall forget. Pass these things down orally and sometimes written. And obviously, since we do have technology today, sometimes using computers. That's smoky candle there. Might want to relight that thing because it's too daggone smoky. Smells like an industrial revolution, doesn't it? Woo. Oh, there we go. Sugar cookie scented. Well, that sure didn't smell like no sugar cookies to me. Let's plug something back in here. Get this out of the way. All right, Industrial Revolution. We talked about where it came from, and that is going to be Great Britain, first of all, over in Europe. And that will be in the later 1700s, about 1780s, when that takes place, on into 1850. Little side note here, but goes along with the Industrial Revolution, I think, is the end of slavery for the British. and that's going to be 1833 when they abolish slavery in their country. And obviously it won't be until the 1860s, almost 30 years to the date. So 1864. That's another great revolution right there. We have them all around. That's why I took you around basically a small portion of the house. Actually, it's a large portion. And so this is the Industrial Revolution, and really, revolution. When we think about that, I mean, we got to take a look at that. You know, it's we've had a Revolutionary War. We've had this Industrial Revolution. So we're going to take a look at that word revolution. So this is in technology, this revolution that we have. It's just like the Revolutionary War against Britain. It's an enlightenment. And then that's through society and culture and government. Now we have another enlightenment, and it's not government, and it's not culture and society. It's got effect, and that will affect culture and society. And later on, believe it or not, I do believe it's going to affect. It does affect government as well. So this industrial revolution, well, yes, it does affect the government because of child labor laws. What else comes out of this thing? How many hours in a week they could or in a day that they can work? So they had the 3/8, 8 hours of work, 8 hours of sleep, and 8 hours with worship or family, and that was their entire 24 hours when it came over to the United States of America. So this is the Industrial Revolution. So we're talking about machines and factories. My father worked in a factory for 30 some odd years and retired, and working with machines all over, in the factory for his entire, pretty much his entire life after the Navy. But even during the Navy, he was around machines all the time, and doing things as bending metal and using technology. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty here and talk about some interesting things that I found out, even though we showed you some examples of technology. Really, it comes down to that very first time, that enlightenment, and this has got to be true, is fire. And with the invention of fire, and that's where it all started. And then man wants to have a continual drive, I think, is his nature of the human being, and that is to improve ourselves and our surroundings with technology. It's almost going too far, and we'll talk about that later. So it's inventing a better life. We showed you demonstrations. We showed you basically a match versus this little guy, which is a propane, natural gas here, a little lighter, and it works off of a little electricity. And then we showed you the light bulb, and brought up his name real fast. That was Thomas Edison. And that was a kind of a deal there. That was kind of interesting. He worked on the light bulb and learned, 2,000 ways, not to make a light bulb. It wasn't failures. Everything, he took a look at those failures and turned them around to be, successes, which I think we don't do enough of. We tend to really look at our failures, and we need to stop doing that, myself included, and look at our successes. So, and we invent things for a better life. We went around and showed you the kitchen, and just that area, you see a lot of advanced improvements, like the refrigerator, the garbage disposal, water dispenser, an ice dispenser from the refrigerator. It has a light on it so you can see at night. We went around and saw a toaster, saw a coffee pot, coffee maker. And those are just everyday inventions. We take these for granted a lot. And just yesterday was the 25th anniversary of the World Wide Web, which is the www. And people try to, I remember without the web, and to get some information, we didn't have these kinds of phones. These are smartphones. We didn't have a laptop. We grew up with a rotary phone, and you made a mistake. We had all the phone numbers posted on right beside the next to the phone, the ones that we need to use for emergencies and the ones that we utilize an awful lot. And then if we didn't know it, we went to the phone book and looked it up. And then also for schoolwork, and since we didn't have a computer, we had a library, or we had a home. We had basically a set of encyclopedias. Britannica is a famous one that we actually have, and I have those downstairs. And with my son Ryan, we did pull those out and you still need to get into, still in the habit of pulling things out of old technology and brushing it off, and because sometimes, I mean, that is history, and really you shouldn't lose that ability to use that. I talked about hand drills, and I own hand drills, and it doesn't take any kind of electricity. It just turns it through a system of gears with a bit on the end. So those come in handy when you don't have any electricity, no outlets. You don't have a cordless because your battery died. You don't have to run into those problems. So you just pull out something that does work. So we looked into this is an interesting little book. This is U.S. History for Dummies. I go off of that one a lot. And we also have a complete Idiot's Guide to American History, but I still like that U.S. History for Dummies. And along with the textbook, along with other notes and slides that we get from the resources that other teachers give. And we just culminate all that. We put it in this mixing bowl, and then we just go ahead and give our presentation that way. So, all right, so inventing a better life. We're going to take a look at the iron horse, which is the train, is going to race against a horse, and not an iron horse, a flesh horse, and his name is Old Paint. And well, they did have this race, and Old Paint actually pulls off a victory. And you're like, what? How can a horse, be, beat a train? Which, a train, you think it's like, okay, it's fast, and it's gonna, just throw in more coal, or adds, more water and steam at that time. So they worked on steam, and it can run for a long time, and the horse is going to wear out. But not the case, because with you'll find this throughout the rest of your life, with mechanics, they can break down. That's kind of the old rule of thumb. Technology is great until it doesn't work. But and then you got a plan B, a plan C, and even a plan D. What are you going to do? You just got to let everything shut down because you lose technology? No, you just go to a lower form of technology and make that work. That's why you should never forget that use of technology, because if you rely on one resource and you don't actually have other resources around at your your availability, it's like putting all your eggs in one basket. So you need to diversify your technology, and we need to learn that, I think, in the United States even more. And you're still going and with technology, but we'll get to that one. All right, so this victory here, this mechanical failure of the train, but the train has arrived to America. See, that's the big point here. Okay, even though it busted, it broke. It arrived in the United States of America. And now how are we going to make it better? See, that's what we always think about. Because how are you going to make Old Paint better? A horse is a horse, right? I guess you got to say that. You can breed them a little bit differently or something like that, but they're only going to run so fast. Okay? You're not going to be able to breed that horse to run any faster than, 50 miles an hour. I mean, a horse can't run 100 miles an hour. I'm sorry. But a train can. And it goes a lot faster than that. So we do have some safety issues, first of all, with the train. This is kind of interesting. Since it is working off of a boiler system, and it could actually cause, because we're working with pressure here, can also cause explosions, and there's also metal to metal contact with the rails and the actual well, I'm going to call them wheels for the moment, but metal to metal contact there, and sparks basically would fly and cause fires off the side of the rail, or even worse, it would get underneath the cart or car that you were riding in, and start your the floor of the car on fire. So that's not a good idea there either. So I'm sure that might have put another invention into place. Would be the probably fire extinguisher. Enormous impact we have here on this industrial revolution. Labor demands building these tracks for the railways, and that's going to bring in a lot of immigration. And I know for a fact that Chinese people from China came over and really were the back and the sweat of putting together the rail system, especially out in the West. So that's going to bring people all around the world, and that's going to be more culture again through science. We're not going to get away with it, or get away from it. Science and history and social studies, it's like any other subject. All the subjects are going to come together. So we have demand for capital, which attracted foreign investments because they see this machine, they can see the potential, so they see the cha-ching, the dollar amounts, and they can see what it's worth. And transport large amounts of goods, and it sure beats wagons and pack horses. So now you have something that can actually load up a lot more, and they're obviously still in use today. It's just different types of trains that have been actually manufactured. Opening new markets and actually linked older ones. So that's what the rails do. So it opens up brand new markets where you never even could go there, and actually it regenerates old ones. They jump on board and says, hey, we'd like to hook up, and literally, and they're part of that this infrastructure, which is so important, and we're finding out with our road system, but also with the rail system, and we'll get to that in for the North and the South and how they think about it. Communication improved vastly. Talking about that with even with not with the train, but with the telegraph, and that's very, very important. So now we're going to talk about reaping what you sow, and this is the basically planting easier. Come out with a steel plow, and his name is John Deere, and he's a blacksmith, and he works because it would break the plow and this hard ground wood or rocks, but he's from Illinois, and he's a blacksmith, and he invents the steel plow. Big, huge advancement, and you still hear his name today with farming equipment like nothing runs like a Deere. Harvesting, which is Cyrus McCormick, you should know him, the mechanical reaper. And before this advent or event, the inventing, before this was invented, that's why we say advent, of the reaper, it took 20 hours to actually reap 1 acre of wheat. 20 hours. Now let's check it out after this advent, this eye open. I call them like all moments, and now it's fully basically perfected. The reaper is. And it took them basically less than 1 hour to do an acre. So you're saving yourself 19 hours. Now remember, money is time. So if you could save time, you're saving yourself a lot of money, or making yourself a lot of money. So this is good for the America's bread basket, which got much larger because of the reaper. communication across America. That's the telegram we're going to talk about. And we talk about a New York painter, and his name is Samuel F.B. Morse. And if you look at his last name, Morse, it's the same as what we use as Morse code. So he'll use that through the telegraph, which the first message with the Morse code that was sent over says, "What hath God wrought?" So WROUGHT, not brought, but what hath God wrought? Not everyone actually was impressed with this invention. And one of them is Ralph Waldo Emerson. And he went on to reportedly say, observed, yes, this is a quote here, but has Maine have anything to say to Florida, question mark, end quote. I don't know, Mr. Emerson. I think it's going to come very much, in use, definitely during the Civil War, and throughout any other kinds of, because I mean that brings along, communication that's wireless now. So communication is really important, vastly important to the age that we live in today, yesterday, and back in the telegraph time. So it's all about information and at your fingertips. And again, we'll get to that. Sometimes it's a double-edged sword. So we talked about. We want to talk about this guy right here. In 1764, Richard Allwright, he invented the water frame. Okay, it's a spinning machine powered by running water rather than human energy, which they used to have to do. Other inventions sped up the weaving process as well. It moves from the house, okay, of the larger machines, manufacturers built in textile mills, and the mills onto the banks of the river. So they're relying on the water source, so they have to be a right river. So they're not mobile, all right. So you can't take it and put it anywhere you want to. So they are restricted. But the thing of it is, I mean, of this factory, it's everything's under one roof. So that's the good system there. We're getting kind of parched again. This is wonderful coffee that my wife made me. Let's see here. Factory system, which we talk about, brings workers and machinery in the larger places together under one roof. And this brings investors, again, looking for capital, which is capitalists. That's what they call them. People who invest in capital or money in a business to earn a profit. It's a lot of they are skeptical, taking a risk because things can actually go down. But with this new inventions, but you got to stay with them. If you do from the beginning, you're going to make a lot of money. So let's see. It says by the factories provided to be a good investment for the capitalists, right? And the mills owned. And by 1784, the British workers were producing. Just said British. Okay, so this is not the United States. British were producing 24 times as much as they had in 1765. Now remember, they're not relying on human resources anymore since they're going to get rid of slavery. They're going to end that in 1833. So we go back to Arkwright. He built the first steam-powered textile plant, and it's a steam engine, which is a reliable source of power. Factories no longer had to be built by the riverbanks. Hoorah! And they could be built in cities where young women and children could provide cheap labor. And we're talking, let's see, what was that, 2 cents a week that they were working for right there. And they started out as 12-hour days. And that was 6 days a week, if I'm not mistaken. So the invention basically is not tied to the river with the steam engine. So that it also brought in labor and more money for the family, and that's why we have young children and women working also. Um, oh, here we go. Traitor or spy? American Industrial Revolution. So that's what's going on here. All right, 1789, a young, basically apprentice, right? One of Arkwright's, because he's British, Arkwright's factories decided to immigrate to the United States. His name is Samuel Slater. Samuel, he's got a pretty, witty mind about him. He's got to be really intelligent to be able to do this and pull it off, because you couldn't go into the factory and start writing down pencil, paper, and plans. So what he does, he uses knowledge of Arkwright's machines that could be worth a fortune, and he studied hard and memorized the plans, put them to memory of Arkwright's machines. Then he boarded a ship for New York, and he's gonna basically start a factory of himself. He began producing cotton and thread at a rate that was never seen before in the United States. Because remember, we go back and to the other, was it 24 times? Yeah, 24 times as much than the United States. Yep, 24 times. So now we're getting caught up. See, we're catching up. British are ahead of us. So we're a new nation, and it's catch up. American industry grows. Now, only for the North. We're not talking about the South. Okay, we saw that it's a bit of regional division still going on with this. The success that Slater's Mills market began, the American industrialization. Industrialization began in the Northeast, so the New England states. So the region was home for classes of merchants who had capital to build factories and buy raw materials. So it's a lot of wealth up there in the Northeast. And the name of these mills, they got a name for them because it's named after an individual, and his name is Lowell. Now, these are the Lowell's mills. So Francis Cabot Lowell found a way before the war. He had basically visited England, and there you go, and seen the latest weaving machines. And when he returned to the United States, Lowell and an associate built and improved a version of the English machines. So again, we borrowed designs from the English and we improve upon them. And that's why these, individuals, the girls are known as Lowell girls. Now remember, this is still a factory, so it's under one roof. Everything's going on. Let's see. And then they built a new town, and boarding houses, a library, a hospital, and they named their mill town Lowell after basically the late partner. So these Lowell girls, and I like this studying this because of what's going on with these individuals. The new factories were staffed with young women from nearby farms. So they left the farm. And this happens even in China today, but all over the world. It's global. Leave the rural area and go to the urban area for more money. But that's a bad thing in its way, because you got to be careful if you have enough people who are producing food for you. So you gotta watch that. Under a strict supervision, so they lived in a boarding house, and after work, they might attend lectures or visit libraries. As a result, many women gained an education they probably would not have received on their family farm. So that's a bonus and a plus for them. So remember, with knowledge comes power. So they're gonna get more power, and this is gonna lead to suffrage and equal rights, and they could do the job. So they've always proven themselves. So here they are at the beginning. So the British novelist Charles Dickinson was amazed when he saw this town, Lowell. Here's his words right here. First, there is a piano in a great many of the boarding houses. Secondly, nearly all of these young ladies have subscribed to circulating libraries. Thirdly, they have created a paradoxal, basically called the Lowell Offering, which is what this is written by Charles Dickinson. So, very interesting on his words there and how he's amazed, and their education. But they do have long hours, and they fight for that, and they get it down to that 8, 8, and 8. So the revolution takes hold in the United States. It's mass production, which is known as rapid manufacture of large numbers of identical objects. That's going to be a big one right there, because they're going to be leading up to interchangeable parts. So these are identical pieces that could be assembled quickly by an unskilled worker, and it's more efficient because, shoot, you had to, before the Industrial Revolution, you had to make it yourself. I don't think I don't know, be good at making, everything in the house. I mean, you'd learn, but man, that just takes a lot of time, I would think, and a lot of energy, but it still takes a lot of knowledge. So what do we do now? We just, basically go to the store and we look around. We say, I like that. And we buy it. And we can even have it shipped to the house and even set up in the house. And then we just click and it's on. Yeah, it's just amazing. So manufacturing became more efficient. So the price of many of the goods dropped. So instead of the handmade goods, we get into these factory-built goods, and the prices drop because they can actually manufacture more of them. But really, I don't, handmade items. That's that that Americana. You just sturdy built, and that they taken good measures, and it's a craft, and it's the craftsmanship and the work that they put in it and all the hours. So, you pay for what you get. Let's just say that, right? So, it's more efficient. So the Slater guy employed children in his textiles. This is the factory life. In the textile mill, as it actually had been done in decades in the British factories. As time went on, working conditions of children and adults became harsher. And we're going to see actually how harsh these conditions actually do get. Because, it looked really pretty and, let's say inviting at the beginning, but then we get into this other stuff that's going on. So, child labor. Children routinely worked in the family farms. We talked about that in the 1800s. Their labor was often needed to help feed their families. Basically, subsidizing, right? And for that, and we some of us do that today, even that type of farming. And let's see, their labor was often needed, right? So working on the farms, totally different from working in the factory. However, in the American textile mills, coal mines, and steel foundries employed children as young as 7 or 8. These children had no opportunities for education whatsoever. Remember, we're not talking about the Lowell factories. They often worked in unsafe conditions. By 1880, more than 1 million children between the ages of 10 and 15 were working for pay. So I just kind of breaks your heart. Factory conditions or working conditions were very appalling. Basically, factories were poorly lit, so you don't have much light, fresh air. It's all stale air, and the machines were designed to perform a task, not to protect the worker. So there were no yellow lines painted down, not where to go. So no OSHA. So as a result, many workers were injured on the job, and no safety, no switch, no kill switches or anything like that. So a worker who lost a hand or a foot received no help. He or she needed to depend on the family for support, because the factory's not going to help you out. Business owners provided no payments for disability, um, as they are basically by law today if you get injured. To keep machines running as long as possible, work days lasted from 12 to 14 hours. But then we go to the 888 rule in 1844. So we look at different aspects there of the Industrial Revolution. We take a look at factory life itself and what that's like for children and their conditions. After the revolution hits here in the United States for a factory, we did talk about the Lowell girls in Lowell town, and we did talk about the American Revolution, Industrial Revolution here with Slater. Remember, individuals bringing back ideas from England. We did talk about the invention, basically not tied to a river, that steam engine, and machines and factories. So it starts out with building blocks and a foundation, and you work from there. So that is the Industrial Revolution, and how far is it going to go? We are a developed nation. We're not in an industrial revolution anymore. More of a not a technology revolution. It's more of a service now these days, because steel mills have shut down because cheaper prices, and Japan, which was, I believe, in the 1980s and 1970s. So, well, we take a look at also, it just, history takes itself almost like an onion. So it starts itself, tight and small, and then it expands layer by layer. And I think that's hand in hand with science, and history is going to keep expanding. Basically, we need to keep a strong hold, I believe, on technology, and not let it, we run the machines and not the machines run us, okay? So we are the deciding factor of when is enough, because there are, ethics here that are involved in what you believe, but I don't know. You got a lot of science out there that's really doing good, but then there's other science that might not be doing so good. We talk about the space shuttle and what it's brought. Even mistakes become inventions, like the sticky note, the slinky, the frisbee. The yo-yo was a weapon used in China, and now we use it as a toy. So I don't know. We'll just have to, I guess, use it responsibly. So I think what it comes down to is using our technology with responsible and our integrity all intact, but not let it get out of hand and out of control. So that's it for the Industrial Revolution. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
I did it. I did it.